We're going to start with a 15-20 minute meditation. So go ahead and find a comfortable seat. Close the eyes if it feels good. Otherwise, gazing softly at the floor in front of you. Today, we'll be practicing karuṇā, or compassion. This heart practice supports our capacity to stay close to pain, our own and others, without shutting down or being overwhelmed. Especially during times of collective grief or personal challenge, and particularly during Pride Month, karuṇā becomes a way to meet what hurts with love and courage. This isn't about fixing, and it's not about feeling a certain way. It's about offering care as a response to suffering, gently, steadily, and honestly. Finding a posture that feels both grounded and open. You might be seated on a cushion or in a chair, whatever works with your body's natural ability. The meditation will begin and end at the sound of the bell. Let your spine be upright without being rigid. Let your hands rest wherever is most comfortable, or perhaps even one hand over your heart. Begin to settle in. Take a few deep belly breaths. There's nowhere to go, nothing to fix. No right or wrong way to feel right now. Allow your body to arrive fully in the present moment. Slowly begin to let your breath return to your natural pace as we begin a short body scan to arrive more fully in this space. Let all tension flow down and out, starting with the top of your head, easing the scalp, your temples, your jaw. Remove the tongue from the roof of your mouth. Loosen the muscles in your neck. Roll the shoulders down and onto your back, away from your ears. Allow your arms to feel heavy and held as your hands rest on your legs or in your lap. As the weight of your legs support your body on the cushion or chair, feel a deep sense of ease and release. Now I invite you to put into practice this act of compassion by bringing your mind to some difficulty you've experienced lately. Not the most difficult thing, but something you feel like you could approach right now. This isn't a test for how much you can hold, so be gentle with yourself as we begin to welcome this difficulty towards the heart and silently bring this phrase to yourself. May I open up to the pain and difficulties in my life. May I open up to the pain and difficulties in my life. May I open up to the pain and difficulties in my life. Releasing the potential initial instinct to restrict or avoid these feelings that may be coming up. Allow for whatever is arising to arise. And as it does, we offer it the phrase, "May I be open to the pain and difficulties in my life." Noticing how we feel in our bodies as we welcome these difficulties into our practice. There's nothing to fix or change about it, just observing. Checking in with the breath and the space as we remain open to whatever might be coming up, remaining open to our pain and difficulties. We can become curious within that openness to exploring what our pain needs. With this practice, we are going to offer it care, using the following phrase, "May I care for the pain and difficulties in my life." May I care for the pain and difficulties in my life. May I care for the pain and difficulties in my life. What does care mean for you? What does it look like, and how can it shape your relationship with your suffering? How can care provide more spaciousness in your mind and body? Using this phrase to explore that in our practice, may I care for the pain and difficulties in my life. Checking in with the wandering mind, we want to remain open to our suffering, providing it care as we give space for it to exist. We ultimately want to be liberated from it altogether. Transitioning to the phrase, "May I be free from suffering." May I be free from suffering. May I be free from suffering. We can deepen this practice further if there's space to do so by offering these phrases towards others. May I open up to the pain and difficulty in others' lives. May I care for the pain and difficulties in others' lives. May you be free from suffering. May I open up to the pain and difficulties in others' lives. May I care for the pain and difficulties in others' lives. May you be free from suffering. Allow this heart to break open. Care for it, and then allow it to be free. If focusing on others feels too hard right now, return to the phrases for yourself, or the simple intention of care and your breath. May I be open to the pain and difficulties in my life. May I care for the pain and difficulties in my life. May I be free from suffering. May I be open to the pain and difficulties in my life. May I care for the pain and difficulties in my life. May I be free from suffering. We'll spend the next few minutes in silent practice, using this time to continue fostering an environment of care as we remain open to and welcoming to our suffering. The meditation will end at the sound of the bell. So our talk today is on karuṇā, which is compassion, the practice we just went through. And lately I've been thinking about how much pain we're exposed to, interpersonally, politically, systemically, whether it's in our own communities or in places far away like Gaza, Haiti, or Ukraine. The list feels endless, and suffering can seem inescapable sometimes. It can feel heavy to hold. And in the face of all that, I know for myself personally, it's easy to shut down. That's just too much. I don't want to feel this way. If it was a choice, I would certainly not be choosing it. But that's not how it works. Feelings don't work that way, and I can't personally fix the world. So what do we do with that? What do I do with that? I don't want to dismiss my big feelings. They tell me something. They show that I care, but I also can't be consumed by it. And karuṇā is a way to be in relationship with that. Compassion is a practice in response to that. Not as a fixing moment, but more as, again, as a remaining open to a willingness to stay close to pain without being completely consumed by it. Compassion reminds us that we can meet suffering not with avoidance or despair, but with care. And this feels especially timely given the state of the world, but also during a special time like Pride Month. Because Pride for so many isn't just about joy and visibility, although it's a beautiful thing to bear witness to, it can also be about grief and about remembering how far we've come and how far there is still yet to go, in accepting, in loving, and embracing people for who they are. So there's so much complexity of living in a world that often fails to make space for all of our humanity. And in that complexity, and karuṇā becomes not just helpful, but necessary. So today we're going to be discussing what is karuṇā, what is compassion, and what isn't it. Why it can feel so hard to offer compassion, both to ourselves and to other people, and how to take this practice from the cushion into everyday life. So while karuṇā means passion, it doesn't mean that it's like soft and sentimental. Similar to like how metta, loving kindness, can feel all like rose-colored glasses. Compassion isn't that either. It's a willingness to stay close to pain. It requires energy and activation, and there's a fierceness in being courageous enough to be present for pain, our own pain and others' pain, and still be tender and still have a spot for care and love in the midst of it all. So what karuṇā is not. Karuṇā is not pity. I don't want someone looking down on me. Oh, poor you, you're suffering. Or I don't want to be the person over someone else being like, oh, that's too bad for you. So sorry. So sad. It's not martyrdom. I don't have to experience the most pain in the world to be deserving of compassion, nor do others need to be experiencing, the deepest of suffering in order to deserve my compassion for them. And it's not codependence. So this can be tricky because while being dependent on others is a part of community care, karuṇā is focused on our own individual acknowledgement of our own suffering, and how through that recognition we can be in relationship with providing care to ourselves and others. What karuṇā is bearing witness. So being able to sit with suffering without turning away. Sometimes the most compassionate thing we can do is just stay and not run, not numb out, not disassociate, but just be present, which is, of course, easier said than done, which is why this is a practice. I like to think that I'm in recovery from people pleasing. But there is a lingering habit of mine, which is that the belief that when someone is suffering, it's my job to fix it or provide a resolution for it. Also that like my own suffering is somehow within my control to like solve. And that in order for me to get close to my own suffering, sometimes it means I have to forgive myself for how I may have harmed others or harmed myself, most specifically by like self-sacrificing. So karuṇā can be difficult because I think in a world that is kind of very like instant gratification, right? So like you're in pain, how do I get you not in pain? You're suffering, how do I like not provide more harm to you? Like there's an immediacy to that as opposed to being able to hold it, not try to change it, not try to fix it, provide space for it to even be there at all. There's a quote from Bell Hooks, which says, "For me, forgiveness and compassion are always linked. How do we hold people accountable for wrongdoing and yet at the same time remain in touch with their humanity enough to believe in their capacity to be transformed?" And this reminds me that compassion isn't about bypassing accountability. It's not to say that you can't call out something that is wrong or harmful or how you've been hurt. But compassion does hold a separate space for transformation to exist, both within ourselves and within other people. Again, like recognizing that humanity. So sometimes the difficulty in compassion isn't just the resistance to feeling suffering or pain, or wanting it to be gone, but sometimes the difficulty in compassion is feeling so much of it, is like the overwhelm of compassion at witnessing suffering in ourselves and others. To feel deeply is part of being human, but for many of us, especially those in like caregiving roles or marginalized communities, or honestly just existing in the world at all right now, the pain of it all can feel a little like too close to home. Like there's too much happening both in my like immediate world, in my community, and everywhere else. In media, social media, on the news, it's everywhere. And it piles up. The personal grief, community trauma, global crisis. We become saturated, not because we don't care, like wanting to turn that off isn't as a response to not caring, but because we care so much, and that can be scary to like try to hold all of that at the same time. So compassion isn't just a response to suffering, it's a practice of discernment for how we stay resourced in the face of suffering. It asks, how do we stay present without collapsing? How do we keep our hearts soft without letting it split completely open? It's finding that middle path, right? Which is what the Buddha is teaching us with these practices, that it doesn't have to be all or nothing, but there's a way to exist within the middle of it. So sometimes that means setting boundaries with the pain, right? We all just shared earlier, like what are some boundaries that we've had to realize in our lives? And it doesn't mean turning away from the thing. You've actually all acknowledged that those are things that needed to change. So you remained open and discerning in those spaces in your lives to be able to say, actually, something needs to shift here. So it's finding those edges and choosing when and how to show up. And sometimes it means recognizing when our compassion is performative, when it's about being seen as good rather than truly being good, or where that intention is coming from. I think with Pride Month, it can bring up a swirl sort of these tensions. There's celebration, and there's, maybe pressure to be joyful. Or there's visibility, and there's also the invisible labor of suffering in systems that still exist and are still causing harm long after this month is over. So offering compassion to ourselves and to the community and to the world means being honest about our limits and our truths. As a kid, was really deeply feeling. My mom was always like, you gotta let it roll off your back, Olivia. Can't hold it all. That didn't really work for me personally. But that became like the standard of like what being cool or like go with the flow was, like letting something roll off my back. And it meant that I kind of had to hide who I truly was or how I truly felt for a long time, and it made providing care something that I deeply resonate with. Compassion and care and showing up for people and others. It made it feel performative almost, because I'm only one person. There's only so much I can do. And so at a certain point, this thing that I deeply feel and resonate with and want to provide is now becoming a thing that I feel like I have to do, which is not a space that I wish to share from or provide care from, this place of like expectance or requirement. So yeah, again, karuṇā and compassion isn't martyrdom. It's not about absorbing everyone's pain. It's like the quiet, steady reminder that tenderness also matters. So I can see your pain, and also it's important to be tender to myself in being in relationship with yours as well, like your pain and my pain. There's a quote from James Baldwin: "Love takes off the mask that we fear we cannot live without, and know we cannot live within." This makes me think that like compassion can be an act of unmasking. And I know we've talked a little bit about that here, unmasking. It can be a way of meeting ourselves or others without pretense, with spaciousness and radical care, to be able to show up authentically as yourself, which means recognizing your limits and how you can provide and show up, is quite radical as a response to suffering, and not that performative aspect of feeling like you need to. So how do we practice compassion on the cushion? So today we were offering simple phrases. May I be open to the pain and difficulties in my life? May I care for the pain and difficulties in my life? May I be free from suffering? We don't have to start with all three at once. You can just start with one. Maybe one is enough. I think it's important in all of these heart practices that it's not a forcing, but it's arriving at a pace that feels good for you. So feeling whatever comes up and meeting it with some level of compassion. Maybe, again, it's just like a hand on the heart. Maybe it's just saying one of the phrases. Maybe it's the intention to eventually give that part, that suffering that's arising, some care. And off the cushion, it can look like letting yourself rest, even when the to-do list feels endless. My to-do list is like a Mary Poppins bag. It's just like never ending. It could go on forever. And so thinking that I'm going to find rest once it's done, that would be death. Maybe it's listening to someone's pain without needing to fix it. Like, have you ever sat with a friend who's crying and just sat there and maybe provided a hug, but just like truly bore witness to their suffering without trying to provide resolution? It's really powerful. Maybe it's speaking out against harm while staying rooted in care. So understanding that speaking out against harm or naming when something doesn't feel good doesn't make you bad. And there's a way to do it where it remains centered in compassion. I don't know what that looks like for all of us individually, but maybe it's something to reflect on. How do I have difficult conversations or show up in difficult spaces and do it from a place of compassion? What can that look like? I feel like most of us have heard the saying, like, you can't pour from an empty cup. I think for most of my life, I've thought, even if I have a tablespoon to pour, like, that means I can keep pouring. So, like, good on me, like, pat on my back. I have something to continue to give at all times. And that just continued to contribute to burnout. And so being able to recognize when I need to rest, when I need to give that teaspoon that I have to myself and not others, which can be hard. It can be hard to think like, oh, maybe someone else is going without because I didn't provide that for them or offer it to them first. But arguably, I'd say I'd rather have a whole lot of teaspoons to be able to give when my cup is full versus, teeny tiny droplets to everyone around me. And during Pride Month, this might look like giving yourself permission to feel whatever there is. So it might be grief or joy or exhaustion. But being gentle with, recognizing how past and current invisibility might have impacted you, or offering kindness to those who are maybe still fighting to be seen, or be given the love and compassion that they deserve. But celebrating our aliveness in a world that hasn't made it easy to do so is quite a radical act. So, to sort of wrap it up, karuṇā is a practice of remembering that suffering is a part of being human, but cruelty is not. We don't need to earn compassion, and we don't need to be perfect in order to offer it. But when we practice karuṇā or compassion, that's us choosing to stay open to our own wounds, to the pain of others, to the possibility that care can be stronger than fear. There's a quote from, I never know how to say her name.
I'm a children.
Yeah, that person who's lovely. Compassion is not a relationship between the healer and the wounded. It's a relationship between equals. Only when we know our own darkness well can we be present with the darkness of others. This emphasizes compassion not as something we give from above, but something we practice alongside others, from shared humanity with room for both light and dark. You don't have to heal everything in yourself or your life to meet what hurts with care. Healed or enlightened people are not the only ones who can recognize and give care to others and themselves. We're able to do that in the midst of suffering as a pathway to freedom for ourselves and for others. And I'll leave you there. Thank you.